A single spice was once worth more than gold. Wars were fought over access to black pepper. The world's first international currency wasn't money, it was silk. And the invisible highways that carried these treasures across continents didn't just move goods, they moved ideas, diseases, religions, and technologies that built the modern world. Welcome back to World Explained. Over the past 3 days, we've explored how moving continents, ocean currents, and time zones shape our world. Today, we're traveling the ancient superhighways that connected civilizations long before the internet, the legendary trade routes that made globalization possible. Imagine living in ancient Rome and craving the taste of black pepper from India, or wearing silk that traveled 4,000 miles from China. This wasn't just luxury, it was the driving force behind humanity's first global economy. The math was incredible. A pound of black pepper in ancient Rome cost the equivalent of $1,000 today. Chinese silk sold for literally its weight in gold. Frankincense from Arabia was so valuable that entire kingdoms rose and fell, controlling its trade. But here's what's amazing. Moving these goods was incredibly dangerous and difficult. No planes, no ships that could cross oceans, no GPS. Just humans, animals, and an incredible determination to get valuable goods from point A to point B, no matter what stood in their way. Two types of routes emerged: overland trails that crossed deserts and mountains, and sea routes that hugged coastlines. Each had their own challenges, but both created pathways that would shape human history for thousands of years. The Silk Road wasn't actually one road. It was a network of interconnected routes spanning 4,000 miles from China to the Mediterranean. Think of it as the ancient world's internet, but instead of data packets, it carried silk, spices, and revolutionary ideas. The journey started in Xi'an, China's ancient capital, crossed the Taklamakan Desert, one of the world's most hostile environments, wound through the mountains of Central Asia, and ended in Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul. The complete journey took about a year, if you survived. But here's the genius. Most merchants didn't travel the entire route. They worked in relay, selling their goods at key trading cities. Samarkand, Bukhara, Baghdad, these weren't just stops along the way, they were cosmopolitan centers where East met West. Along with silk and spices, the Silk Road carried papermaking from China to the Islamic world and eventually Europe. Buddhism spread from India to China. Mathematical concepts like the number zero traveled from India to Europe. Even diseases moved along these routes. The Black Death that devastated medieval Europe likely originated in Central Asia and followed trade routes west. The Silk Road was humanity's first experience with globalization. Cities along the route became incredibly wealthy and diverse. Merchants spoke multiple languages, used different currencies, and navigated complex diplomatic relationships between empires. While camels crossed deserts, ships were creating even more profitable connections across the Indian Ocean. The spice routes linked China, India, Arabia, and East Africa in a maritime network that made fortunes and toppled kingdoms. The key to these sea routes was understanding monsoon winds. For half the year, winds blow from the southwest, perfect for sailing from Arabia to India. Then they reverse, creating a natural round-trip schedule that merchants had to follow. The ultimate destination: tiny islands in what's now Indonesia, the Spice Islands. Nutmeg and cloves grew nowhere else on Earth. These islands, smaller than most modern cities, controlled global spice markets for centuries. Arab merchants dominated these routes for centuries, establishing trading posts from Spain to Indonesia. They created a commercial language, Arabic, that became the lingua franca of international trade. They developed sophisticated banking systems, credit arrangements, and maritime insurance. When these spices reached Europe through Venice, they funded the Italian Renaissance. Venetian merchants became so wealthy from spice trading that they could afford to commission art from Michelangelo and finance the exploration of new worlds. While everyone talks about silk and spices, there was another valuable trade route most people have never heard of: the Amber Road, connecting the Baltic Sea to the Mediterranean. Baltic amber, especially pieces containing perfectly preserved prehistoric insects, was incredibly valuable in the ancient world. Romans believed amber had magical properties and paid enormous sums for it. This route ran through what's now Poland, Czech Republic, and Austria, connecting Germanic tribes with Roman markets. It created some of the earliest diplomatic relationships between northern and southern Europe. Similar networks emerged everywhere. The trans-Saharan trade routes connected sub-Saharan Africa with the Mediterranean, carrying gold, salt and slaves. The incense route brought frankincense and myrrh from southern Arabia to Egypt and beyond. Then everything changed. In 1453, the Ottoman Empire conquered Constantinople, effectively closing the Silk Road to European merchants. Suddenly, the spice trade that had enriched Venice for centuries was cut off. This crisis triggered the age of exploration. Portuguese explorers like Vasco da Gama sailed around Africa to reach India directly. Columbus tried to find a western route to Asia and accidentally discovered the Americas instead. Within a century, ocean routes had completely replaced the ancient overland networks. Portuguese, then Dutch, then British companies took control of the spice trade. The great trading cities of Central Asia, Samarkand, Bukhara, went from cosmopolitan centers to forgotten backwaters almost overnight. The East India Company, the Dutch East India Company, these weren't just businesses, they were quasi-governmental organizations with their own armies and fleets. They could declare war, mint coins and establish colonies, all to control the same trade routes that had existed for thousands of years. Today, these ancient pathways are being reborn. China's Belt and Road Initiative is essentially a modern Silk Road, using high-speed trains, highways and ports to connect Asia with Europe and Africa. The fundamental patterns haven't changed. Goods still flow from producers to consumers. The same geographic choke points, the Suez Canal, the Strait of Hormuz, the Strait of Malacca, still control global trade, just as ancient cities controlled overland routes. Those spices that once funded empires? They're still traded globally, but now they arrive in your supermarket via container ships that carry more cargo in one voyage than thousands of ancient caravans combined. The great trading cities of the past, Istanbul, Venice, Amsterdam, remain major commercial centers today. The financial instruments created by medieval merchants, credit, insurance, international banking, still power global commerce. But the most lasting legacy of these ancient routes isn't economic, it's cultural. The fusion cuisine you love, the architectural styles that define cities, the religious diversity that enriches societies, all of this traces back to those ancient highways. Buddhism wouldn't have reached China without the Silk Road. Islam wouldn't have spread to Southeast Asia without the spice routes. Even Christianity followed these commercial pathways as it spread from the Middle East to Europe and beyond. Words traveled these routes too. The English word sugar comes from Arabic sukar, which came from Sanskrit shakara. Coffee traces back through Turkish and Arabic to the original Ethiopian word. Every time you use these words, you're speaking the language of ancient trade. The next time you taste black pepper, see a piece of silk, or buy something made in another country, remember that you're participating in a system of global exchange that's thousands of years old. The ancient merchants who risked everything to cross deserts and sail uncharted seas created the template for our interconnected world. The routes may have changed, the speed has increased exponentially, but the fundamental human drive to trade, explore and connect across vast distances remains exactly the same. Here's my question for you. What's something you use daily that traveled thousands of miles to reach you? Look around your room and think about the global journey of everyday objects. Share your most surprising discovery in the comments below. If this epic journey through ancient trade routes opened your eyes to how connected our world has always been, hit that like button and subscribe for more fascinating explorations of our world. Don't forget to ring that notification bell. Tomorrow, we're diving into how languages spread around the world and the surprising ways they conquered continents.